Welcome back to the Become a Provider podcast. Today's guest is my friend Troy Glasgow. He and I met through a men's workout group that we talk about in this episode, and I invited him to a special C.L. Thomas fellowship that I started a couple years ago, and the theme was inviting men who had lost their fathers, as I had, and to reflect on what lessons they learned from them, and how is God providing for us, and how we provide for others in the wake of a father's absence. So what I took away from this conversation with Troy was the theme of patience, the importance of it, and how that helps us to appreciate the moments even more when God does provide. So enjoy this conversation with my friend, Troy. Troy, we're live. Cheers, my man.
All right, how you doing?
So I invited you on the show for a number of reasons. One is you're part of the C.L. Thomas Fellowship men's group with me a couple years ago. And it just seemed like this was a big week for you because how we got to know each other is through this group called F3. And that's a free men's workout group for those that aren't familiar with it. Started, I think, in Charlotte, made its way to the Raleigh-Durham area. And we have this weird award called a trip nip. So tell us, Troy, what is this? And what did you just do this week to get this award?
Let's see. It started with, and this was before I even started F3, so it's a lot of folklore that's been passed down. But it started with Nubbin, one of our fellow F3 friends, who was named after, his name is Brian Perry. His name Nubbin came from the character, not the character, but Chandler, the character from Friends, who's Matthew Perry, who in one episode has a third nipple. You know. So one time, this is what I heard. Tell me if I'm wrong. It was one week, and he actually led the workouts 3 times that week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I don't know who came up with the name, but somehow the name came about as the trip nip.
That's right.
And I think, Justin, you may have burnt on a piece of a stump that you had sliced and etched it out. I'm not really sure you can confirm that or not, but that's kind of where it started.
That's right. Yes.
So, and then this week, this was my first time. I actually did it 3 times this week. So it's got to be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It can't be a Friday of one week and a Monday and a Wednesday or any other variation. So a couple rules. That's about it.
That's right. And you did it. So we like to make things fun. And sometimes you have to do that to get motivated to wake up early, show up to work out. So F3 is a free men's group. You go up early in the morning. For us, it's 5:30 a.m. to 6:15. And you're right. Yeah, one of our friends, Brian, who we call Nubbin, as you described, everyone gets a nickname after their first workout. And so his was Nubbin from the variation of the, his actual name. And then after he did the 3, I was like, gosh, this seems like something special. Let's honor this moment. And I looked around, and at that time I had just taken down a tree from the backyard and thought, oh, I've got this like wood burning kit. Let me see if I can like sketch out like trip nip and have his name on it. And then we'll pass this to each guy that does all 3 workouts, that leads all 3 workouts during the course of a week in our hometown. So this has been going on for years, and we've actually lost, or people have stolen / wanted the trophy for themselves without passing it on. So there's a new iteration that you have as well. So congrats on getting the Trip Nip Award this week.
Yeah, thank you. That's the best way to make sure you show up is if you sign up to lead.
Yeah. So. Exactly. There's a lot of leadership lessons in that. And so for the audience that doesn't know your F3 nickname, what is it and how did you get it?
F3 nickname is Milton from The Office Space. The character who had the red stapler. So that's who I'm named after. And I was telling him about myself, and I was telling them I have to do cost reports, which is a Medicare and Medicaid form we have to file each year for our hospitals. I work for UNC. And when I said reports, they just kind of, I guess, TPS reports from the Office Space movie came about. And they picked the coolest character. to name me after. So they picked Milton. Um, he wins in the end because he's on an island. So I mean, sipping drinks or whatever, hanging out at the beach. So that's kind of where it came from. I had a plan because I knew they'd give you a name, and my favorite movie was Point Break, still is. And I was like, I'm gonna try to be named Johnny Utah, right? So I was trying to give clues of ways to get that. I've surfed before, not an FBI agent or anything like that, but totally went in a different direction than I wanted to go. So I got an uncool name, but still kind of cool name. So could be
Well,
worse.
yeah, way to lead into it. I love that part. Like you knew what was about to happen with getting a nickname, trying to feed the beast of the guys at the end of the first
Trying,
workout, and it
yeah,
always gets to an unexpected name.
yes, yeah,
So
and that's what happened.
we got you plugged into F3. You got plugged into F3, and then during that, I like to try to invite guys to the fellowship that I started in honor of Pop, and thus the podcast and the work and the theme of being a provider. So there was one year, a couple years ago, that I felt inspired to create a special group. So for those that aren't familiar with the fellowship, it's a 9-month program and small group where we read books and verses and have challenges and grow as men as better providers. So I lead this group, and it's changed over the years. I've done about 5 of them at this point over the last 7 years. And one year, over Father's Day, actually, a couple years ago, I thought, it'd be special if I invited guys to my next group who had lost their fathers. And that would be something that would be a shared experience for us. And we could incorporate that into the group. And quite honestly, I remember a little bit of a brave moment for me where I went up to you and I didn't know your father's story at all. And I invited you to the fellowship. I don't know if you remember me inviting you to it or not, but do you want to share share that, like, the first time you heard about the fellowship and why you said yes?
Yeah, yeah. I think it was a Monday workout. You brought it up, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. And it wasn't the part of hanging out with guys or anything like that. It was like I wasn't sure what to expect. Um, and then I thought about it, and then I think I asked you a few more questions. Basically, what's involved, and what do you have to do? How much work is it? That type thing. How many pages do I need to read? Stuff that I realized you have to read a book. Not exactly a reader, but I mean, I can read obviously, but just don't do it a lot. so, so I was like, well, it's like one day a month for a few hours in the evening. I was like, you know what? I'll give it a shot. So, yeah.
And I'm so glad you did, because and the reason I wanted to have your voice on the podcast is because sometimes we can say no to opportunities for good reasons, and other times we say no because we think, oh, I'm just not that person. I'm not that person to join a men's group. I'm not that person to kind of invest in this type of way. And what I recall is at the end of the fellowship, we were having a celebration meal with all the wives, and I just asked the guys and the wives to just share what stood out to them about the experience. And your wife, Cedar, said something that I always remember. And she said, I'm just so proud of Troy for doing this because he would never do this before. And it meant a lot
Oh
to
well.
me that you took that risk. So why did she say that? And what did that mean to you when she mentioned that?
Um, she probably said it because I'm usually like a homebody. It's like I don't like getting out a whole lot or traveling too far or anything. Pretty much stay close to where I'm at most times, and usually I'm just um, not much of a joiner. I would say. I mean, I just don't do a lot of like group stuff other than the F3s in the morning. That's a different type of group, but um, I don't know. I guess because of my introvert ways, I am pretty much kind of stay close. Got a tight group of a few friends, and uh, I don't venture out a whole lot. So that's probably where it came from for her, because I wouldn't actively like. hey, I think I'm going to go join this group to, read some books and figure out about leadership and any other, whatever, just hanging out with guys sharing um, experiences from their fathers that has passed and that type of thing. Kind of sharing. Not much of a sharer, so that was probably another thing too. The fact that I would share things that's going on up in here.
And I'm laughing because part of the experience is having a story weekend where literally it's all about sharing. We take an hour to share stories and we incorporated in our group our father's story and how that has impacted and influenced us. So, from what you described, how was that experience of doing the story weekend, preparing for it and doing that, something that you would not necessarily want to do on a weekend?
Right. Yeah. I ended up. I know it was more of a longer weekend for some guys, and I was like, you know what? Let me drive up Saturday morning and just do the full day. I'll do a full day, and then I'll just drive back and then have Sunday here with the family, that type thing. And ended up doing that. It was a lot farther too on the way home than I realized going when you're by yourself because I rode. Two other folks rode with me, halfback and Gilligan. So coming home, I was like, man, you really are up in the mountains. Pretty good ways.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, plus you're coming
and
back after like kind of a heavy day too. I mean, we've just heard everyone's stories and their
oh
father's
yeah,
story. Hey, that's it's heavy.
it was heavy, and it was good food, and we each talked an hour, and then listened to everyone else, and then you made us go for a run on a hill, like a big hill.
Which can we please share about that? Because I think that was a PR for you, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, that's the farthest I've ever ran um, on purpose. I mean, so and had we had to get back to the to your place, so it's not like we could just you could run back, you get the car and come get me. I was like, well, I got to make it back at least. Then I didn't want to be the only person who didn't make it back in all the years that you've done it. So yeah, it was good going downhill,
Yeah.
uphill. Obviously, had to pace myself a little bit. Coming down though, I got my win, second win on the way back. So I just kept thinking, once I see your mailbox in the driveway, I'm like, I'm there. I can walk it the rest of the way. So I just got my stride and finished it up. I don't know what the mileage was. Was it 4.4 or something like that? I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah, yeah, it was about 4.5 miles, and just for
Hmm.
context, after doing the story weekend, I realized that's a lot of sitting, and in a weird
Yeah.
way, that's draining, and so I thought, we should incorporate some type of activity, so I had the idea of, well, let me invite the guys to do what I call the gut check hill run, and it's, like, from the front porch at our house in the mountain house, from the front porch of the lodge, out and back, and it's this just massive hill that just keeps going and going and going, and then at the top of that hill is a cemetery that you then use as the turnaround point, and you had successfully gone up that. I didn't really know how long it was, and I did a poor job. I think I described it as a 5K. There's a big difference between 3.2 and 4.5 miles, especially when you're talking about elevation. So we were
Yeah.
all just so impressed with you to have a personal best with the distance and do it in the way that you did, where the struggle was real going up for all of us. And then we think, wow, is Milton going to be able to make it back down? And here you go flying down the hill and you got the fire eye. It's like, there goes Troy.
Yep. Yeah, I was in the wind. I was like, I can't stop now. I said, let's keep going.
Yeah.
So
That will forever be a lore of the fellowship. And as I invite to the guys, like, hey guys, got this optional run if you want to do, this might be your personal best. We've had that happen before as well.
that's right.
So your name will come up quite often during that annual retreat.
Yeah.
Going back to the meat of that retreat with the 1 hour, for an introvert like yourself that doesn't, seek out the spotlight, what was it like sharing your story for an hour with the guys?
Uh, I'd prepped in my mind throughout the week about kind of what I was going to talk about, where I could go, and then you realize when you're um, um, you realize there's all kinds of tangents you could take as you're talking, and then before you know it, honestly, it's over. It's like you're at 55 minutes. And you're like, man, I gotta like wrap this up and try to plug in any additional details that might be pertinent. So, but yeah, it went well once you start just talking out loud. It just kind of flowed.
One of the stories that stand out to me, and with this podcast being the theme of becoming a provider and God providing for us in our life, would you mind sharing your journey into fatherhood? I think that'd be a great story to kind of praise God for how He's provided for you in His life, in your life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, me and my wife, we tried for 11 years to have our own child, and it just never worked out. Never wasn't his plan, obviously. Um, so we got to a point where it was like, well, I guess maybe we're one of the couples that are not supposed to have a child. So kind of rolled with it. I was like, okay. So we're like, you know what? We had a boat at the time. I was like, you know what? Maybe we should get another boat. Like, just get a new one. So we agreed upon it. Just get a brand new boat. This was like December. So we ordered it, picked the colors and everything. Um, and then I can't remember how many weeks after that. It might have been just a couple. It wasn't very long. A friend of the family, kind of a friend of a friend of a friend, knew someone who was going to be having a baby and thinking about adopting the baby out. So we were interested, and we talked to her, and then we just didn't hear anything. It was like, well, I guess it wasn't the right thing. We'll just keep hoping something else will come about, praying something else will work out. And then the whole boat thing just started working itself out, and we're like, all right, cool, get this boat, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, in like I think it was first of the year, like January, we get a call from the mother's like, you know what, I do want to adopt out this baby. So we're like, oh, okay, great. We had no idea how to do it, what to do, and it was not through the agency. So we're contacting a local lawyer to try to figure out the ins and outs and what's involved with that. And then then we're like, well, when's your baby due? It's like February 14th, and we're like at January, early January. So we're talking like a month. Like, oh my goodness. So of course, she finds some good baby furniture on Craigslist. Go pick it up. We start talking with the lawyer, um, figure out what we need to do and all this stuff, get all these forms. And um, so we're moving along. Everything's good. And then, it didn't take too long with the lawyer. We got the forms back. She's like, we just hold on to these. And when you go to the hospital, mother can sign and all that type of stuff. So then we get a call a week prior to what we thought was the due date. And she's like, well, it was 2 a.m. She's like, I'm gearing to go in labor. And she's like 2 hours away. It's near Charlotte. So we hop in the car, go there. By the time we get there, it's probably 6, by the time we get ready and get out the door. Um, Wife is able to be in the delivery room. So immediately when the baby's born, pass it to my wife. And she does holds the baby. So it was a great experience for my wife.
Hmm.
Um, so it's amazing how God blesses us and provides when you don't see it coming, or you just don't know what's around the corner. And prior to all this, her mother had my mother-in-law had brain cancer, and she had passed away um, prior to all of the adoption talk and everything. So my wife had told her mother's like, hey, when you get to heaven, pick us out a baby, and you know send us to us. I forgot the exact wording. So,
Mm.
and you say stuff like that, and you never know what's going to happen. And praise the Lord. I mean, it pretty much happened that way. He
Wow.
sent us a healthy baby, um, and she's grown up to be super sweet, athletic, and sassy. Girls. So, but yeah, it was such a blessing.
Thank you for sharing. That is a special moment as well, and pretty brave of your wife to ask that from her mom, it sounds like. Like, what a prayer request.
She did. She's like, "Hey, send me a baby. Pick one out, send it." And you know, you can tell when the Lord is providing, it's just special. When something like unexpected and just happens I wouldn't say too easy, but it's like the circumstances just come about, and the cards, you see the cards getting played out, and you just see how things just fall into place. Timing works out just the way it's supposed to do, and you're so busy prepping for it that it just kind of, when you're looking back upon it, it seems like natural progression, and everything just kind of worked out exactly the way it was supposed to be. I can't imagine not having, obviously, our daughter now versus, say, if we had a natural child when we were younger, when we were married. Would we have, um, went the adoption route? You just don't never know. So it's just God's plan. You just got to trust in it, and you know He knew all along. So
That's a long time to wait too, isn't it? So you guys had tried for 11 plus years, right?
yeah, yeah, it was a long time, and it's just a lot of ups and downs, and just keep praying that whatever God's will as far as children goes will be done. And it was, in His time. It's not, it's, you always want what you want, or you pray for things that you think you need, and the timing of it is all depending on Him. So that's it teaches you to trust and obey, and patience, a lot of patience.
Yeah. This is a good question to lean into a little bit is how did you find that patience? How did you endure that decade plus waiting period
It,
as you think back to it now?
I guess I'm really patient. Like I'm extremely patient. That's one of my the good things that was given to me. So I'm not an impatient person. I'm probably overly patient. But I guess that's one good side. So maybe with my patience and my wife, uh, I mean, she's pretty patient too. But we just kept the faith. I mean, just kept praying, and before you know it, it was, the years had passed, and this things life occurs. Different life. Um, Different things happen during your lives during that time. So you just, um, time passes before you know it, and then when it's the right time, it works out the right way, because that's what it's the way God intended it to.
Hmm. Yeah. You guys have had to be patient with that and other things, I know. Are there any other moments that stand
Yeah.
out to you when God has provided that you wanted to reflect on? And sorry, it looks like you were about to say something there.
Oh yeah. The only thing I was going to say, during that time we did. There's a lot going on. Um, my dad passed in '04, and then her mom passed in 2012. Hallie was born in 2013. and then her stepdad passed in 2018. Yeah, it's been a journey. Life's been busy. 2019, my wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. So you never know what life's going to throw at you. Um, and in the ups and downs, you always need to continue to be prayerful, praise the Lord for everything, good and bad. He will provide. He always provides. You always reflect on the tough times to figure out, and you realize that, he was there the whole time. So sickness, happiness, uh, always there.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that answers your next question too, kind of. Um, but yeah, just always providing. I mean, you get used to the day to day life, your day job, and you do meet your goals, meet what you have to do for work and everything, and it feels like you're just kind of always moving on to the next thing. But I think if you just take time daily to reflect on all your blessings and always give God the glory and the praise for the moments and all the good things uh, that occurs during life.
Hmm. You just celebrated a big milestone birthday, the big 50. So welcome to the 50s. And that's a big one in F3
Yeah.
world because in F3, the workout, at the end of each workout, you go around a circle and you say your name and then your age. And so because you're a 50-year-old now, you get the honor of having respect being called out to you after the naming as well. Uh, and so as we begin to wrap up here, just how are you providing for yourself now? You're 50 years old, you're a dad, a husband, you've been through some life tragedies, some losses, and I'm just always curious, when I interview people, how are they providing for themselves in this season of life?
Uh, try to I try to work out as much as I can. It's not as consistent as I like. Other than this week, purposefully this worked out to be a good workout week. But just try to enjoy life, enjoy family time. Try to you know take some long weekends. We go up to the lake and water ski a lot, so we try to get some family time out on the boat and just enjoy being outside in the water. Um, so I guess that would probably be as long as we have a little bit of little rest and relaxation mixed in with the daily grind of the work, then I'm good. Yeah, I'm working for the weekends.
Well, you are willing to do that for the family, and it's very honorable. Where we kind of joked about your nickname being Milton, and doing the
Hmm.
reports, and maybe that's not the most life giving thing in the world, or maybe it is. Like I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for you to be willing to do that for the family and provide for them, and to
Hmm.
enjoy your what you delight in, which is the lake. And that's one quick story I wanted to share, which I invited the guys to essentially host a month during our fellowship experience. And how you hosted was very unique. So tell us about that. Like, how did you host the guys in the fellowship? That was awesome.
Yeah, I thought I was trying to do something fun. It wasn't sure how I'd work it out through the day because everyone's got the jobs, how their day jobs work, and I ended up asking them to take like an afternoon off. And my boat was in the shop, so I borrowed my cousin's boat, and we met there at the Jersey Mike's parking lot and drove up to the lake. Wasn't the best day with thunderstorms popping up, but we squeezed in a few. I think it was 3 hours, but I was teaching everyone how to wakeboard. So Justin popped up, no problems.
You're a good
Um,
teacher.
yeah, and let me think. Halfback popped up, but then he had a little bit of trouble figuring out the rest. Gilligan got close, and I think Roy popped up pretty. He'd done it before, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was a fun trip. It was short and sweet, but I think everyone had a good time.
Yeah, and I
So,
think it reminded me of how fun it is to see people in their how they delight, right? Like you and the family, yeah, as you've mentioned, enjoy time on the lake, but
mm,
also you use that as a way to invite others into that shared experience, which was just amazing to see you in your sweet
yes.
spot with that. It was so awesome, so awesome.
Yeah, and me and my cousin, we've taught so many people how to water ski, different types of skiing activities, and because we've done all kinds of different boards and skis and different things. So you know, we figured out how to teach others so that they can stand up and enjoy the feeling of riding on the water.
Which that is a skill. I mean, as I was in the water, it's
Hmm.
so foreign. You just don't know
Hmm.
what the process is to get up, you know? It looks easy when other people do it, but then you're in the water, and then you're able to talk people through it. How do you
Yeah.
do that so well?
Uh, I think probably personal experience. We know what it feels like to have the water pressure against the board and what your body mechanics, what you should be doing at that specific point in time. And if you move certain ways, how it can make you fall and you won't get up. Or if you completely try to power your way up, you won't get up. It's like just pull an anchor. So the mechanics of water skiing is typically you lean back a little bit. Snow skiing, I think I've snowboarded, but you lean more forward. So water skiing, you're relying on the rope, so it's towing you, and you're relying on the boat, which is doing all the work. If you do it right, you pretty much are just kind of locking in position and just popping up with your knees bent. So probably just time. I've been on the water since I was 4 because that's what my parents and my uncle did. They went to the lake too, so they kind of ruined me by showing me how much fun it is. So, and I've done the same thing. Taught my daughter how to wakeboard and wake surf, and 2 skis last year, and she can kneeboard. So, it's always fun passing down the knowledge.
Yeah, the lake legacy continues with you and the family with it, and thank you for sharing that as
Yeah.
part of the fellowship. Well, any kind of, parting words for guys that might be, considering a men's group, whether or not it's the fellowship or something intentional like that, the introverts out there to get them to consider something like that?
Yeah, yeah. I would just say, you know, just go for it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just hanging out with your friends. Just talking, and it is a little. It's hard to share sometimes. So usually, some folks just don't like to share, and it's okay because you never know what someone's going through. So what you say could benefit them, and you don't even know that. Um, until you hear it, and then it's always interesting just to hear um, about people. You, what their history was, what their, especially the story time
Mhm.
at the cabin. It's always interesting to hear people's backgrounds and how they ended up where they are. Um, so I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's a good way to kind of get you out of comfort zone, but not to where it's totally uncomfortable. It's just a little nudge in a different direction. So, and you keep it fun. I mean, you're very organized with your charts, and I can't remember the name of that type of chart you have, but it was. I mean, it's very formal and well thought out. So it's not like you're just calling people in, and you've got it down pat. From all the years of doing the fellowship.
Thank you.
It's good.
And that reminds me too, when you talked about you never know someone's story, what I thought was so great was during our group, your unique experience through adoption, you were able to speak into the life of one of the other guys in the group that was going through that journey. So that was a unique perspective you were able to bring to the group.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was able to at least. It's always good when someone else has went through something because you can kind of, well, what did you do? How did you do this? What would you know? You It's a good way to answer questions because you've already kind of went through that journey and figured it out by circumstance. So yeah, it was great, kind of giving um, Roy some advice. Um, I know his was through an agency, so it's a little different. Where ours was kind of private, just me dealing with the lawyer versus like an agency. But well, me and my wife. So I think it's translated well. I think it probably gave him. I hope it gave him a little some comfort knowing that um, it's common and it can totally work out. And when God's timing is there, things fall in place the way they should. Just the way his adoption did too, as well. Because I think the first adoption attempt, I think there was a hiccup, and so they waited a little bit longer. So you just have to trust in him and know that his timing is perfect.
That's a great way of ending the conversation, I think. And just as a quick recap, what I'm taking away from our conversation, Troy, is a reminder of patience is a fruit of the spirit. And that's something that you mentioned as a core strength of yours. And fortunately,
Yes,
you've had that, but God gave that to you for a reason. I mean, I can't help but think of Abraham and Sarah, being promised this child and it not coming for years and years. And,
that's that's
like
true.
you have your own version of that, right?
Then
And
that's very true. I never put the two together. But you're right. You're right. He, he he provides. He gives you um, you know what he thinks you need when you need it, and there could be hiccups in between. Um, but at the end of the day, he's there for you, and he protects you. He provides for you. Same thing, like I said before, with my wife's illness. Um, Praise the Lord, she's cancer free. Her last scan showed actually a little bit of shrinkage in the lymph nodes. So um, it's been that was a journey to go through all that, but it did bring both of us closer to the Lord. Uh, and I feel like that's what tough times can do. Is at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, it does help you to trust in Him more.
amen to that. Anything else you want to
Yeah.
mention, Troy, before we end the conversation here? Thank you for the time, by the way.
Oh, sure, no problem. I hope podcast uh, for this episode goes well. I was a little nervous because I was just afraid I'd be too boring. So
I love it when guests don't
yeah,
want to come or they think they're going to be too boring because
yeah.
it there's a place and time for the published author and professional speaker. I just love real authentic voices on the show and you've provided that today. So, was there anything
Oh,
else you wanted
good.
to encourage our listeners with before we end it?
Um, let's see. I would say like and share Justin's podcast or YouTube videos. Go out there and leave a review. Encourage anyone to partake in the fellowship if it comes their way. Um, I think it's a good thing, and it's always great. I love the scripture basis of your fellowship too. I mean, to me, that's the core of it all. Is to help others see that as you provide for your family, it's the same way God provides for us. So we follow His lead.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and I want to provide you with one more thing before you go, called Always Provide. Would you enjoy getting some encouragement each Wednesday to help you get over hump day? If so, subscribe to our free newsletter at clthomasfellowship.org.
It's easy to sign up, and it's sort of a diary of ways that I'm personally learning to provide and serve more like Jesus. I share inspiring books, scripture, stories, and even products that are helping me to always provide. So if you want to try it out, go to clthomasfellowship.org/newsletter and sign up. So until next time, keep serving others like Jesus. Bless and protect. This podcast was edited by the Kristen Fields Chadwick podcast team. Kristen and her team are passionate about equipping faith-based podcasts like this one to share their message by owning the entire editing and distribution process. This has been a delight to work with their team, and I'm so excited to partner with them ongoing. So if you want to have their support, hire them at KristenFieldsChadwick.com, or if you just want to learn from their work, you can listen to their podcast titled Podcast Coaching for Kingdom Entrepreneurs. That's Podcast Coaching for Kingdom Entrepreneurs. And Kristen has actually been a guest on this very show. You can listen to her story at episode 116.